Welcome everyone to another video with Rahul. Today we're going to discuss AWS CloudWatch and SNS and then do a quick demo. Please like and subscribe if you like this video. So AWS documentation says AWS CloudWatch is a monitoring and management service that provides data and actionable insights for AWS, hybrid and on-premise application and infrastructure resources. So what Amazon CloudWatch essentially does is it collects metrics and logs from all AWS resources. Then you can monitor those logs and metrics. And if there is an anomaly, you can take an action. Now to give you an example, suppose you spin up an EC2 instance and you want to monitor if your CPU utilization has crossed 85%. So what you can do is you can use CloudWatch alarm for that. Every time the CPU utilization crosses that particular threshold, it will send an email using SNS to a downstream resource, or it can invoke a Lambda function which can add another EC2 instance to your mix. Similarly, for logs, say you have an Route 53 hosted zone and users are trying to access your hosted zone, but they are getting some error codes. You can, once you get the logs, you can set up some keywords based on those error keywords. Once within that certain period, if say you say within 5 minute period, if I have in my logs, if I have more than 3 keywords with errors, I should get an alarm. So that is what you can do through CloudWatch logs. And then the third thing you can do is you can have dashboard for visualization. So what does SNS do? It's basically a fully managed messaging service for both application to application and application to person communication. Basically what you do is, in the previous example, on the CPU utilization, once that threshold is breached, you can actually create an SNS topic which says that CPU utilization breach, and that CloudWatch alarm will write to this SNS topic, and then this SNS topic would have certain downstream subscribers. So it could be a Lambda function which can then auto scale add another EC2 instance to the mix, or you can have an email, so you can send an email to the admin. So all these services are going to subscribe to this SNS topic, and every time there's a new message, it will be passed on to these downstream services. Okay. Now let's see what we're going to do for the demo. For metrics, we're going to create an EC2 instance and then set metrics at, say, we'll set a much lower number because we don't have a lot of traffic, but in production scenario, say you will put it as 85%. Once that's breached, it would trigger an CloudWatch alarm. This CloudWatch alarm would then send a notification to this SNS topic, which would send an email to whoever has subscribed to. So say in this case, an admin. Now similarly for Lambda, I've written Lambda function, and what it'll do is it will generate some logs, and every time, say I put a keyword, any keyword, say error, and every time it sees a error keyword, say 5 times in a minute, it will trigger an alarm which would write to SNS topic, and this SNS topic is going to send an email to the admin. Okay. So now a couple of prerequisites before we start. We should create an EC2 instance, and then we should also have a Lambda function. Okay. Then we'll create an SNS topic. Once SNS topic has been created, we'll create the CloudWatch metrics and CloudWatch logs. Okay, let me go to the console. So I will go to EC2 instance and I will create a new EC2 instance. Okay, launch EC2 instance. If you don't know how to create an EC2 instance, please look at my other video. So just to select. Okay, configure. I'll just leave. There's one more video I have created on VPC, so you can see how to create a VPC and then add it here. So I'll do enable. So I'll select an IAM role. Okay. Add tags, we'll leave it as it is. Configure security group. We need to allow all traffic. so that we can generate some traffic for this CloudWatch alarm. Anywhere launch. Okay, I have this launch instance, so I'm going to let this instance launch. It's going to take a few minutes. Okay, it's here, but it's still, you can see it's in the pending state. So I will create an SNS topic in the meantime. So I search for SNS. So I click on SNS. Okay, so the first thing, as I said earlier, we have to create an SNS topic. So let me create an SNS topic. You can see create topic. So there are two types: FIFO, which strictly preserves the message ordering, the first in, first out. So I'll just go for standard. So I go to the topic name. Let me select, I will call it metrics logs. Okay, copy. Okay, paste. So you can do some encryption if you want the messages to be at rest. Then you have some access policy, your delivery status, retry, but I'll leave everything as it is. So I'll just create this topic. Okay, now this metrics logs is already there. So you can see that the topic name is metric logs and this is the ARN. So now what I have to do is I have to create some subscription. So I'll create a subscription. So what this means is anybody who subscribed this topic, there's a new message, it will be sent to them. So what are the options we have? So you have the Kinesis data stream, SQS, AWS Lambda, email, and there are a lot of other SMS. So I'll just select email. So I'll give my email. Okay, so I give my email ID. So I'll create a subscription. So now what I'll do is I'll need to subscribe to this topic. So I'll get a notification in my email and I have to subscribe, and then it will be fully functional. So I'll just pause the video for a little bit, go to my email, and then subscribe from there. Okay, I'm on my email now. You can see I've just got 0 minutes back, I've got a message. So I just need to confirm subscription. And now I'm subscribed to this. Now I will go back to EC2 instance and let's see if it's already running. Okay, it's passed. So I will just connect to this. I will just type in some, I'll just start an Apache web server. Okay, so okay, let me quickly type in some commands. Okay, so this will help us just generate some traffic. So I'll hit this URL and then we'll be able to breach the CPU utilization. Okay, so next thing I need to do is I need to go to CloudWatch. Okay, so you can see here on the steps we had, we have created an EC2 instance. For metrics, for logs, I'll do that demo separately. So we created the SNS topic and subscription. Now we're going to create an alarm, then generate some traffic to the EC2 instance. Okay, I'm on CloudWatch now. So I go to alarms. So I have to create the alarm. Okay, I'm on CloudWatch. So let me click on alarms. I will click on create new alarm. So we have to select the metrics first. So let me just copy the instance ID from here. So this is my instance ID. So now I have this interface. Okay, let me just close it. I think it's not refreshing. Select the metrics. Okay, now it's showing up. So I click on EC2 instance, our instance metrics. Okay, now I'll search the instance ID, the one which I've created. Okay, now you can see for this instance ID that we had created, there are multiple out-of-box parameters that are available. This write and run network packets. So I'll just select the CPU utilization. Okay, so I click on select matrix. Now in the select matrix, you see that I have the namespace, which is a default namespace. Matrix name is the CPU utilization V, and this is the instance ID, that instance we have created. Now, let's just first look at the period. So period you can collect data either at an interval of 5 minutes, 1 minute, 10 seconds, 30 seconds. So I'll just select 1 minute for now. Then statistics. So what statistics means is that now we have, say, within 1 minute period. So do you want to have the CPU utilization average over 1 minute? Do you want to have the maximum that was there or minimum utilization? So you can just select. So if you want to breach an alarm when, even if within 1 minute period, whatever was the minimum or whatever was the maximum. So you have some options here. So I'll select minimum. So you can select a threshold type. Either it can be static, or if it's a band, then you can select anomaly detection. Usually it's just static. Now say you have to put the number. Before I go to define the alarm condition, let me just go here, number. So what is the threshold value? So usually you will put, in a production scenario, you will put it at 85% or 80%. But here I don't have so much traffic, so I'm going to put it really, really low. So I'll put it at 0.2%. Okay, if it is more than 0.2%, then it is going to generate a alarm. So here I'll just put whether it's greater than, or you want it less than 0.2. So I'll put it at greater than equal to. The last thing we have to show is data points to alarm. So if you are evaluating, so if you put it 2 by 2, then it will evaluate our first 1 minute and then second 1 minute. And if you put 1 by 2, then if in out of those 2 minutes, period of one minute each, if it's breached even once, it will generate alarm. If you put 2 by 2, then what will happen is only when it's breached twice over 2 minute period, then it will create the alarm. Okay. So I'll just keep it 1 by 1 for now in alarm. So what is going to happen in various states? If it's okay, do you need to do anything in session data? What do you need to do? And in alarm. So we'll just focus on in alarm. So we already have an SNS topic. Select an SNS topic. So that was my matrix logs. Okay, that means I will get an email because I had subscribed to that topic. So I'll go to next. I'll put an alarm name. So matrix, let me put it as matrix demo 01. Okay, now it is, so it's all populated now. So create an alarm. Okay, now, so I have the matrix data, but it doesn't have enough data, and it will take about 1 minute before it starts to evaluate. So I'll go to the EC2 instance by then. I'll pick up the public IP, so I'll generate some traffic. Okay. Okay, so you can see a hello world that I had installed on the Apache server. So I'll just make some hits to generate some traffic. Okay, so sometimes it takes a little bit of time. I'll just pause the video for a minute and then come back. Okay, I waited a few minutes, and now you can see this CloudWatch matrix that we had defined has gone into an alarm state. So let's just take a look. So this is the number we had put it as when we should get an alarm, and you can see that the CPU utilization has reached 0.329. So it's gone into the alarm state. Okay, thank you very much. In the next episode, I'll look at creating the alarm for the logs, CloudWatch logs. Thank you.